most and welcome to another exciting episode of Mama's Nest, the show that teaches you everything you need to know about pregnancy, motherhood, and child care. My name is Foma Ejumudo, your host for Mama's Nest. Mama's Nest is proudly powered by Cousins Baby, makers of child skincare products to support moms on their motherhood journey. Mom, you can do this. Welcome back to Mama's Nest. On today's episode, we're looking at postpartum depression. I mean, you just had a baby. Why are you depressed? Having a baby is something to be joyous about, but today we're looking at some of the reasons why a woman might be depressed after she has a baby and its effect on her overall well-being. And as usual, I am not here alone to discuss it. We have our expert in the house, and we have a mom who's also kind of an expert. So today's conversation is going to be quite interesting. First, we have Dr. Olanike Adekunle. She's also a mom of 2 kids, and I'm happy to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
We also have Dr. George Uchendu. He's a medical director and health educator. He's popularly called
the talk doctor.
So we're going to be talking a lot about postpartum depression. I had postpartum depression, and the funny thing was I didn't know I had it. So I'm happy that we're having this conversation. But like I earlier said, come on, you just had a baby. You're supposed to be happy. What is going on? Why are you sad? Or why were you sad? That's more like a general question.
Okay, so for me, I would say at that time, I didn't know that there was a name to it.
Exactly. Same here.
So I was thinking there was something wrong with me. Why would you have a baby and not actually smile at the first time you see that child? Yeah. It could happen. I didn't even know that it had happened to someone else until recently. I was talking to a colleague and she was like, when she saw a baby, she was just like,
indifferent.
Okay. You know, so she was like, she had to pray at some point that, God, let me bond with this baby, you know, for like 3 days. It was the 3rd day that she actually was able to see her baby and appreciate the process. But for me, when I had my baby, so the hospital had the child, the labor ward was downstairs, but when they like check you on your feet, you go back upstairs.
Okay.
So when I was going upstairs, my mother-in-law, maybe I was carrying the child, she was so excited about the baby, but she literally didn't see the pain in me coming upstairs. So when I got upstairs, I was like, oh, sit down. Okay, now the first milk, colostrum, put it in the baby's mouth. And at that point, like my soul was literally gone. I just really needed somebody to even like show me love, me, myself, you know, and everything was to the child. And it took me like a lot of time, you know, to process. Okay, Nike, you're not a sacrificial lamb. This is a lovely baby you just gave birth to. So just take it easy on yourself. It was really tough.
So you had to do some
Yes, I had to talk to myself alone.
Did you share that with anyone around you, how you felt at that time?
That's what I'm saying. The first person I told was recently. I'm talking about this child.
So you carried you carried all those feelings all along. Wow.
And it was something I could not say to another person, that at the first instance, when you actually see your child, you're sometimes even so much in pain. You could be cold.
That's difficult. But why? What exactly happens? Is there anything? Is this something that happens internally? Is it hormonal? What exactly is going on?
I think that, and while I'm speaking from an expert opinion, there's also a lot of empathy that needs to go into it. There's a lot that happens with women in the journey towards childbirth from pregnancy.
Yes.
So it's a combination of emotional, physical, psychological factors.
Okay.
Right? And while there's the hormonal part, people to move from being I was listening to previous conversations, to move from being a chick, a babe, to becoming a mother, seeing that you're birthing someone is a lot that a lot of people just try to discard. And so you're thinking about, how can I move from being a babe to becoming a good mother? How can I take care of my child?
This person.
Like this child that is coming into this world, will I be able to? There are already societal expectations.
Yes, of course.
There are already family expectations. They are looking at you and they say, so all those things you used to do before, you cannot do them again.
Definitely.
And so all of that is coming into your head and you're wondering, oh, you saw how your mother trained you and the other and your siblings, and like, can I meet up to this standard? So a lot of these come together and affect the psyche of women and discipline. The moment they see the child, they are like, oh my God, it's another phase.
I get that.
I can't do this. And that reflects in the behavior. Apart from that, there's also typically in pregnancy, right?
Okay.
Hormones are usually at its optimum. The estrogen, the progesterone, those hormones that interplay in pregnancy. And the moment the woman delivers or gives birth, those hormones drop. The drop is so sharp and so drastic, at least within the first 2-3 days after delivery.
Because the body no longer needs them.
Exactly. So the crash in those hormones, and a couple with a few other hormones produced by the thyroid gland. The thyroid gland is the gland that helps with body metabolism and how to handle the processes in the body. This crash could also predispose to postpartum depression. And the psychological part, as I mentioned earlier, if a young parent, a young mom, because you're living that phase of life where you're still young, but you're transcending to another phase. If you dealt with issues during pregnancy, maybe there were complications, or maybe your quarrels with your partner, or you're not in good terms with your family, or finances, stress, all these things can come together and lead to what we call postpartum depression.
I get that. But there was also something that you mentioned about everybody putting so much focus on the baby, and kind of you felt kind of abandoned. I also don't understand that when the baby comes, everybody is cooing over the baby, admiring the baby and loving the baby. And the mother really is a little bit
left aside.
Left aside from all of the pampering. Apart from, obviously, they will press your body, they will cook pepper soup for you and lots of pap.
Do they even do that?
But
some people don't do that. The woman will still give birth and still enter the kitchen.
Yes, in some cases.
Yes,
in some cases. In fact, I was lucky when I gave birth this last time to my third child. I was lucky that my mom hadn't come for the traditional omugwo. So I was lucky that my friend came, and I was still doing strong girl. I can do it. I can do it.
Wow.
And it was so funny. I was lucky that my friend came with her maid. So they brought pepper soup for me. The maid entered the kitchen. And my friend was telling me, you're in the kitchen. What are you doing in the kitchen? You shouldn't be here. You shouldn't be here. But I was doing stronger. I can do it. Superwoman. A few days later, I was sent back to hospital because my BP spiked. So imagine if I had done really strenuous work. But going back to what we said, it takes a lot for a woman to just feel abandoned and feel, okay, you're just there. Congrats, you gave birth to a baby. So now your work begins. Oh yeah, milk factory. Start feeding the baby. And it's not easy to be left out like that. It's easy to withdraw into yourself and actually get depressed. But what is actually postpartum depression? Can you tell us from like a medical angle?
So talking about postpartum depression, we know there is depression.
Yes.
Which is what we are all familiar. But postpartum depression is the depression that occurs post-delivery. After a woman. Sometimes it can even commence from pregnancy. But then that will be perinatal. But postpartum is she delivers, and then the whole emotions, the whole symptoms that are seen in that instance begins to play out a few days after delivery, sometimes hours after delivery, and that can last depending on how severe. Mild, we're talking about mild, we're talking about the postpartum blues or baby blues. A few days resolves in like a week or two, and can get even more severe and extend to months, where you now talk about postpartum depression, and then comes with symptoms like being anxious. You see your child and you're very anxious. You're just scared. You just feel like you don't want to have anything to do with the child. You feel very sad. This moment you can be really happy, and then the next moment you are just so sad and crying. And then everybody around you, clearly because they are giving the baby attention, you begin to transfer that annoyance to your partner, or to your family members, because like you just don't want to have anything to do with the child. You can't even sleep. You can't eat well. It's a whole lot of emotions that comes into play. And when they last for the key thing to this is when they last for more than 2 weeks and
Okay.
they are severe enough
All right.
to affect your function as a mom
Okay.
in terms of taking care of your
Your
child
baby.
and doing other responsibilities
Yes.
that you're supposed to do. When they affect it and last for more than 2 weeks, then you begin to say that this is probably a possible case of postpartum depression.
So how long did yours last for?
Okay,
Or when did it even start?
It started, like she said, when you
yes,
had your baby.
I'll say for the first child, it was really transient. Like it didn't last for so long.
Okay.
Because I had my mom and my mother-in-law living with me to help me.
More than enough help.
Yes. So because they helped me, I thought that's how life was.
Oh no.
Yes.
You're just getting started.
So I got pregnant almost immediately after again.
Welcome to motherhood.
Yes, so they were with me. In fact, like they would do everything for me. My mother-in-law, she's so neat, hardworking. My mom, they would sort everything out for me. You know, I would just wake up. And then I would eat. And then I would nurse the baby and I'll go back to bed. I was flexing. You know, it was my 3 months maternity leave. I was flexing. So when I resumed maternity leave and I was like closing earlier than normal, then I got pregnant again. And that was now the real deal. Like nobody, at that time, my mother-in-law was already late. Then my mom was with my elder sister that just gave birth. So I now had to, that was now the real deal. I was left to myself with a little baby.
How old was your baby at this time?
I think it was about 8 to 9 months.
Okay.
When I got pregnant again. Yes.
Wow.
And I faced it. Like I danced to the music I created myself.
Oh dear.
That was the real thing. You know, you're nursing the baby and then you're pregnant. And of course, first trimester for me, I had hyperemesis gravidarum. I was always throwing up. I wouldn't eat anything.
Severe
morning sickness. I would throw up. I would not be able to put anything in my mouth.
And you have to take care of a baby, whether you are well or not, whether you like it or not.
Then people will now stigmatize you.
Of course.
Yes, you just had a baby.
But
I thought you just had a baby.
But you're still closing by 2 now. You're still closing
Yeah,
by 2, and
yeah.
then all of a sudden you're throwing up.
True.
Like-
I mean, there are a few things she mentioned that I want to highlight.
Sure.
Is first and foremost, this is very common. A lot of people, you probably just spoke with someone recently, but statistics show that 1 in about 7 women have postpartum depression. In fact, baby blues
Let me
is
chip
worse.
this in now. And I also think that many mothers don't know that they are depressed.
They don't know. And because we're in a
don't
society
know.
where there's a lot of cultural and
There's
spiritual
a lot of
influences.
stigma. You tell them you're depressed and they tell you go and pray.
Exactly.
And sometimes they call you Ogbanje. She has started again.
Like,
She has started with her moods
We have a
again.
bundle of joy and you're bringing
Exactly.
sadness, that kind of thing. So it's very common. And as you said, a lot of women don't even know that this is what they have. Because if you know what you have, then you know how to go about it.
handle it.
Maybe now we are talking about, they realize, oh, I had this thing. So baby blues, which is the milder form of postpartum depression, is very common. Most women have it. As she talked about her first child, it was just very transient. And that was because of the family support system, which is a critical part of a pregnancy and childbirth. Having your husband, your family, everyone rallying around and as they pay attention to the child, give you that much energy.
As much as an attention to.
And another thing that she mentioned is that people think that it's only for the first child that this happens, but it's not just for the first child. In fact, I think that it happens more with subsequent children because there's usually that initial excitement with first children.
With the first child.
Everybody is, but from the second, everybody begins to like, okay, she should know.
From the crowd that comes from the naming ceremony, you know it's not that deep for the first child.
Exactly.
Yes.
Subsequently, everybody's like, you know what?
We'll go on a quick break. And when we come back, I'm happy you mentioned pregnancy blues because it's also something we need to talk about. We need to go on a quick break, but please don't go anywhere. We'll be back shortly. Mama's Nest is proudly powered by Cousin's Baby, makers of child skincare products to support moms on their motherhood journey. Please don't go anywhere. I'll see you in a bit. And we're back on Mama's Nest, proudly powered by Cousin's Baby, makers of child skincare products to support moms on their motherhood journey. I'm still here with my guests, Dr. George and Olanike, and we have proven that postpartum depression is real because there's there's also some, because of the culture that we live in, a lot of people say, what's wrong with you? You can't be depressed. You've just had a baby. But we've so far proven that it is real. It is a thing, and it might even need medical attention.
Definitely.
Yes. Before we went on the break, we were talking about the fact that postpartum depression can happen at any time. It doesn't have to be for the first child. It can happen when you have your second or third or fourth child. And I remember for me, it happened when I had my second child. I just kept thinking, so is this how my life is just going to be now? Like, nobody told me all these things. Because at that point, my husband was studying for his master's. I was mostly alone with the kids. I'd stopped doing what I loved to do because I had to take care of the kids. So I was at home full time. So I just kept playing in my head. So Fume, this is just your life now. Is this what you planned to do with your life? So this is just how you are going to end up. So all those thoughts kept playing in my head. I felt sad most of the time. I felt inadequate. I wasn't happy. It was just a whole bunch of negative thoughts just playing back in my head. But then, what are some of the signs and symptoms? I know we've talked about some, but can we go really deep into that?
So we've mentioned the intense sadness.
Yes.
For a period where you're supposed everyone is celebrating and jubilating, you're just feeling very, very sad, feeling very, very anxious. Even with your emotions, while you're feeling very, very sad this moment, the next moment you're happy. But it's just an emotional roller coaster. Of more sadness than happiness, especially when conversations about the child is being brought up, or you see your child. There's the anxiety, there's the fear of you not being able to cater for your child. There's the fear that something bad can happen to the child. There's also thoughts that come up of hurting your child.
Oh, yes.
Not the action, but thoughts. You're just having thoughts of hurting the child, or thoughts that the child will be hurt. There's also you're easily irritable.
Okay.
Something that would not easily get to you will just get to you, and then you transfer that annoyance and that aggression to people around
the
you.
Child.
For a lot of mothers, they find it very, very difficult to sleep. And I know that after childbirth, there's always that change in sleep patterns because of the child. But when the child is even asleep, you can't sleep. So that is a major. So it's not when the child is up and about, yes, but when the child is asleep and you're supposed to, typically that is when mothers try to get some sleep. But when the child is getting sleep, they can't get sleep. A lot of women can't eat well, eat properly. Some overeat, some don't even eat at all. So these are a lot of the common symptoms. The feeling of inadequacy, the feeling of am I enough, the feeling of I'm no longer attractive to my partner. I'm now a certain kind of way. So all this guilt, especially if the woman if she was young and she wasn't exactly planning to have a baby at the time, they begin to feel like, what have I done? Like, as you were feeling, is this how my life will end? Like, so I would just become a baby producing factory, and I will stop all the things that I love to do. And so they even lose interest in the things that they love to do. Even the common things that they would love to do on a daily, they lose it. And so these things come together, and as I said, when they last for longer than 2 weeks, and they are very, very intense enough to affect your taking care of your child, you don't even want to breastfeed your child. You just don't want to hold your child.
Sometimes the child even makes you upset.
Yes. And people are like looking at you like, what did this child do to you? They don't know that you're dealing with stuff. So if it lasts for that long, beyond the period of 2 weeks, and it's that intense, then we are definitely looking at a case of postpartum depression.
So Olanike, I want you to speak now from two perspectives. First, as a mom, and secondly, as a doctor. You experience this thing real time. Is there any way you could have prevented it? Is there anything you could have done? Is there anything that you could have done to prepare you to handle things better and to prevent postpartum depression?
Okay, so from a mom's perspective, like I said, I didn't, when you are the patient, or when you're related to the patient, your judgment is biased.
Very true.
Okay, it's biased. I
Yeah,
get
it's
that.
actually biased.
That's why they say doctors shouldn't attend to
To their family
Exactly.
members.
Because I remember when I was having contractions for my first child and I presented in the clinic. I'm supposed to be saying contractions, right? I was telling I'm having menstrual cramps because that was what I could relate to.
Okay,
And so then
related
the doctor was
to.
like, no, boy, you're having contractions. I'm like, I don't know, but it's like I'm having, because
Yes.
at that point in time, it was me. It was how I was feeling. Forget the textbook. I couldn't relate to it at that point in time. So for me now, about the depression part, when you say something to me that I would usually accept, I'll start crying.
Okay.
Little things, as little as the dress I was going to wear for the naming ceremony, the fact that I look at the mirror and my body is not just aligning, like I'm supposed to look good tomorrow, but I'm not just conforming. It's not looking like what I want to look like. I'll start to cry. But sometimes when I now remember, okay, the medicine part of it, I'm like, you know what, it's not that deep. It's a natural process. Breathe, take your time. But sometimes it really overshadows.
I get that.
Yes.
So is there anything you could have done? Anything at all? Maybe to help somebody out there who is also going through the same thing or preparing to have a baby?
Okay, so yes, little things first.
Okay.
Group discussions.
Yes,
you
definitely.
Talk to somebody.
Yeah.
Learn to open up, learn to speak up. That's the Sorosoke generation, right?
Yes.
Learn to speak up. If something is wrong with you, for me, my elder sister was like, I followed suit, she was pregnant 2 months ahead of me.
Okay.
So she gave birth 2 months ahead of me. So I'll pick up my phone, I'll be like, did you go through this? I'll call my friends, Ufoma, did you go through this? Sometimes my friend will call me, video call, be like, Anika, are you going through this?
System,
so I was able to voice out to people. I didn't take it all on myself.
Was there a reason why you did not talk to your husband?
Yes, I was also going to ask that.
You'd be like, if you're going through all of this and he probably didn't know.
The thing about my husband was that anytime I asked him questions, always trying to be political. For a woman, it's better for you to remain silent because whatever you use, whatever you say can be used against you. So sometimes I'll try to whine him like, but am I ugly? Like,
I know.
My nose is big, right? My legs, I'm fat, Abby.
Yes.
I don't know. But he wasn't going to tell me the truth because he didn't want me to feel bad. So I'll speak to somebody that's,
feel worse than you already felt. It's the same with me. I don't ask. For a long time, I didn't feel very good about my body, myself. I don't put on too much weight, but the little weight I put on and my tummy was bigger than normal, out of proportion, even after I'd given birth. And my kids, up till now, they still tell me, Mommy, you look pregnant. Is that my baby brother in your tummy? Yes, even up till now, it might not look like it now, but I get that a lot, and I tend to feel bad about it. So I don't ask my husband because he will...
He would affirm.
He will affirm positively that he doesn't have any problems about the way I look. But then it's about you, really. It's about the woman. It's not about,
I agree, but in the place when we talk about support, when we talk about family support and people just being around you, it's part of these affirmations are part of it. I believe that probably the better way to have gone about it, speaking from a man's perspective now, is to say, this is currently here. Your tummy is a little bigger than normal because it is a natural process. But irrespective, so the first thing to do is acknowledge that this is present, which is the difference for what both of you are saying. So you felt like the man will not acknowledge it. He will just try to affirm it and be political about it. But when you acknowledge that, this is actually what it is. But irrespective, I don't know now if you women will take it.
No, you will
not even take it.
You know what? At some point, my husband would say, "Yes, it's like that." But of course, you just gave birth to a baby. Give yourself time. You always snap back. Sometimes he would say that, but it's not something I always rubbed in his face because I knew that he would always just kind of brush it away. Even recently, I had I started to suspect that I had diastasis recti. The one that the muscles of the wall of the tummy separates. Because my tummy wasn't coming down. My children kept saying, "Mommy, you look pregnant." And it made me feel bad, but I never showed it. Like I never really told them that, don't say that it makes me feel bad.
True.
But then at the same time, when I mentioned it to my husband, he was like, no, he started doing all this positive thinking kind of thing. But I'm like, it's there and it's most probably it. And he's like, please don't call anything that you don't want on yourself.
Yeah.
But it's also better that if that thing is there, it's better that we know it's there and then tackle it accordingly.
Yeah. Gives you peace of mind.
You know, but yeah, what you said is it might work for some women, but for some others,
Yeah.
Because you need the constant. The woman will feel a certain kind of way. She will feel really overwhelmed by the whole thing going on. She still needs to hear. She still needs to feel, even though she will not agree and accept. She still needs to feel that there are people looking out for her.
Yes.
That the man, that the family members are still checking up on her and showing her that attention.
Yes.
Because it's a critical part in a woman coming out of either postpartum blues or postpartum depression. The presence of support as people are taking care of the child.
Yes.
Should also take care of the woman.
Yeah.
Of the woman. Well, so now you've mentioned again postpartum blues. What exactly is the difference between? Can you tell us what's the difference? I know they're similar, but
okay. So for the pregnancy blues, right? It usually happens like 2 to 3 days after you give birth, and in 2 weeks you expect it to disappear.
So that's the blues.
Yeah.
Okay.
But when it persists, like it's ongoing, that's when
over time.
That's when you talk about depression.
And is there at any point cause to seek professional help?
Yes.
Okay.
For the pregnancy blues, right, since you expect that it should go in 2 weeks, yes, you might not need to seek, or you may, depending.
Okay.
But once it's getting beyond that, you see that it's like 2 weeks, a month. Yeah, you see your doctor.
Another thing to add is that for some women, they might not even have the symptoms of either postpartum depression after delivery. It might even happen later on, months after delivery, within the first year of that childbirth.
So does that mean if it doesn't happen within the first year of childbirth, it's no longer postpartum depression?
It doesn't happen within the first year, it's no longer postpartum. Postpartum depression.
I see.
But if it happens at any point, whether 2-3 weeks after delivery or even months, 3 months after, but within that first year, it's postpartum. And then, as she said, the symptoms, apart from the time frame, the symptoms in pregnancy in postpartum blues are mild. They're very transient. You will feel them, but it will not overwhelm you enough to affect function.
All right, thank you. All right, thanks, guys. We need to go on a quick break. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop it in the comment section or send it in as a message to any one of our social media handles now scrolling on the screen. Also, you can download the Mama's Nest app. It's available for iOS and Android. We're going on a quick break now, and we will see you shortly. Please don't go anywhere. Mom, you can do this.